Hello there! So this week I'm doing another speed paint in Photoshop. This is a painting of my character Rowan, and the video discussion is mostly going to be about the painting because I couldn't really come up with a decent topic besides just trying to explain my thought process behind this. And this might actually be the last video that I post sort of on this weekly schedule that I've been upholding. It seems a bit mad that I've been upholding a consistent weekly schedule for I think 14 weeks now. Like, it's been a lot of fun, but I'm about to go start school, so I might not find the time, and I'm gonna like meet a lot of people and be out a lot and trying to, you know, do outside life things rather than just hole up in my house with my sketchbook all the time. So the concept behind this painting is my character Rowan. He's my emo character. Like, I know a lot of my characters might seem quite emo, quite punk, but he is my actual emo. All my other characters, they might seem it, they might act like it, but they're not actually emo. This guy is, because he was like betrayed. Like, there's a big story. So he hates sort of people, but because of his work, he works as a bassist for hire. Like commission, so he has like 3, 4, 5 bands that he usually plays bass for, because it's hard to find a consistent bassist because they always like quit, or most people who can play bass end up going for guitar instead, something like that. So he finds himself in like a club scene, or like a bar slash club sort of party, very loud, very extroverted sort of people. He finds himself in that scene a lot because that's where he works most of the time, but he's just like, I wouldn't say he's introverted, he's just like antisocial because he was like betrayed and stuff. But yeah, so I've had this scene of him in my mind where he's just like stuck in his own head, stuck in his universe amidst this sort of party group chaos. And yeah, I'm really happy with the sketch. This is the first time that I've sketched a thing that I'm going to be overpainting with the regular hard round brush in Photoshop. But I quite like that, because recently I found that when I sketch with the chalk brush, I end up having to do a second sketch. But if I'm overpainting, I don't want to like try to refine the sketch too many times, because then I'm going to be overpainting it anyway. So I might as well just like do one sort of neat-ish type sketch and then leave it at that. And for the background here, I didn't want to like render it too much. I didn't want each each background figure, because they're not characters, they're figures. There's a distinction, I'm quite sure. I didn't want each figure to have like their own sort of outfit. I didn't want them to have too much personality. I just wanted them to be, you know, generic partygoer A, generic partygoer B sort of thing. And then I'm starting to add what's going to be the party lights, a green and pink one. I picked green and pink originally because I'd been meaning to do a sort of green lit painting, because I wanted to see sort of how a skin tone would interact with a green light on it, and what sort of shadows that I can, like a blue shadow maybe, or a red shadow, or just an interesting sort of shadow to put in contrast with the green light. But so I picked green originally for that, and I figured that pink would be a nice contrast that would match with Rowan's colours, but I ended up changing them later because yeah, I ended up not being too fond of the green, and I was thinking about changing the pink to blue, because I'm not a big fan of pink either. But if I changed the pink to blue, it would have a green and blue light, and Rowan's colours are all pink, red, well, a dark pink, I'm okay with dark pinks, a pink-red sort of thing. But then I decided not to, because it's just too many cool colours for a warm-coloured character, that it would just mute him into like a greyish sort of thing, so he'd just be a part of the background rather than like sort of in his own little aura within the background kind of thing. So I ended up deciding to go for blue and red, and I think that ended up working out really well, because if you look at his earrings, once I zoom back out, he has a red earring and he has a blue earring, and they kind of correlate quite nicely to the sides that I picked the blue and red lights for. The background, I ended up trying to do a lot of experimentations of like Photoshop mumbo jumbo with like gradient maps, and trying to figure out values and trying to figure out how to bring things up, how to bring things down. And I ended up kind of taking my first ever delve, because I know a lot of Photoshop mechanics that I never use. That's the type of thing when you watch a lot of tutorials, you end up learning so many things that you never ever use. For example, I've watched, I don't know, 5 hours worth of blacksmithing videos when am I ever going to have access to a forge or a mallet, or when am I ever even going to have the coordination to be able to hammer something into something straight? Like, but I know the technical stuff for it because I've seen the tutorials, so I know a lot of stuff about Photoshop because obviously I watch a lot more Photoshop tutorials than anything else, so I know a lot of technical stuff that I never use. So masks is one of those. So a mask is sort of like a editable clipping mask type of thing if you apply it. So if you have a layer and then you put a mask on it, on the mask you can paint something black and it won't show up, and you paint something white and it will show up of like what's on the mask on everything else. So for the gradient maps, when you like make a gradient map, it comes with a built-in mask that you can just start editing. And so I started trying to do that after I figured that like the figures are too close in color to the rest of the background, and I didn't want the rest of the background to receive the same color treatment. But by that point I'd done a lot of overpainting on the figures that made it so like I couldn't just clip the gradient map to the figures because they had a lot of the background already in them. So then I just like started messing around with this a lot of Photoshop mumbo jumbo, just because like no, it's nice to experiment, right? And I've been doing a lot of traditional stuff lately, even though I can't quite, you know, film myself doing a watercolor piece, or I can't film myself doing an acrylic piece. I did an acrylic piece recently. I still haven't posted it anywhere, but it's cute. It's Eevee from Pokemon. No, so yeah, it's trying to figure out some Photoshop mumbo jumbo since I've been doing so much experimenting with traditional mediums. And around here, like, I think I'm just doing colouring lines and doing some shading, because I decided to take a break from the background to paint all the colours, like all the shadows and stuff on the character, because I was just like way too fed up with trying to figure out how to work this background. Here I am finally trying to start that original gradient map, and you see there's just like a little sliver of pink or a little sliver of green in the middle, because I'm trying to like exclude the rest of the background, and by that it's like, alright, I'll pick the value of the rest of the background and make that the grey that I wanted, and then just have the like range of values that the figures are go from like pink to dark blue. But the problem there was that if I made it like that, then I couldn't have anything actually lighter than the rest of the background in the figures. But I wanted the figures to have some highlights, especially in the little drink cup that's getting spilt over on the bottom left. I wanted that to have some pretty bright highlights because it's not just drink, it's reflective, it's all that stuff. So yeah, it just ended up, because if you see like there's spots of black right in the middle of the highlights because of the way that I set up the gradient map, and I hadn't quite messed with the layer masks yet. Like, well, I did mess with the layer masks a little bit, trying to like, alright, this is pink side, this is blue side, this is green side, this is pink side. They're not blue or red yet. It's so confusing because the colours change, but in my mind I've seen them as blue and red for hours upon hours, but I saw them as green and pink for hours upon hours as well. So there I am finally trying to work this mask thing out, and I kind of like got stuck in this red mode without knowing what to do, and then I figure it out, and then I was like, alright, so then go back to overpainting the figures, and it was a lot of switching on and off the gradient mask to try to see how it would work out, and it was quite frustrating actually, because like I had to see how it looked with the gradient mask, because like the correlation between the values with the gradient mask isn't, the gradient map, no, it didn't kind of coincide with the transition between the values in just the grey stage, because I made the brightest point so much brighter than the actual bright grey. See, this is so confusing, and then I go finally changing from green and pink to red and blue. And also, speaking of red and blue, I might sandwich this image in a second. I saw recently that the Riverdale, like the Netflix TV series, the Riverdale poster has this sort of lighting, and I thought that was cool because I like Riverdale, but I kind of forgot about that poster. But I guess it makes sense because my brain subliminally remembered it, kind of. But I think I did it like quite different. And yeah, just trying to figure out the background with the lights and the things and all the stuff. And I ended up doing like a little orange light there in the background to try to show some three-dimensionality, yeah, that word. And I'm finally starting to overpaint the character. Was his sketchiness and his rough lines giving anyone else anxiety? Because I was quite fed up with seeing all that pixelated and lines going this way and that while I was working on the background. And I started around the neck and collar area, but then I was like, nope, alright, going downwards, because I started just like doing little things to the hair, and I was like, yeah, this is just what I don't have enough brain power for this right now. I need to do something a bit more mindless, which is the rest of the overpainting. The rest of the overpainting qualifies as a bit more mindless because all the hard work was done there. And there you see me resizing the elbow because I figured the bicep was a bit too long. Like, Rowan's a tall dude, but that still doesn't mean that his elbow comes down to his hip. His elbow goes down to his belly button-ish area. Wait, let me just... Yeah, it's around the belly button-ish area. And it's a bit bent, so it's meant to go a bit higher than I'd drawn it originally. And that's the sort of thing that, like, even though I flipped the canvas right after I sketched it, it still didn't stick out to me. But then, like, now when I see Rowan before, like this painting before I kind of straightened up his arm, it just looks like his arm is like way too long. Like the tips of his finger would go all the way down to his knee if he were like standing straight or something. So yeah, just pretty basic kind of overpainted with a chalk brush to add texture, and here I am finally starting to delve into the face and the hair, which, because I resized the face and the hair so much between originally sketching it and then starting to colour it, there's a lot of like really weird pixel things that I need to like accommodate, and I didn't worry about trying to fix them after I'd resized them because I figured, oh yeah, I'll just do that in overpainting, no worries. Oh yeah, I'll just do that in overpainting, no worries. Come to the overpainting stage, all the worries, because like it just made a lot of sense. And if I like kind of had all my overpainting masks separate from, layers separate from the original thing, I think his face would have like an entire new coat of paint, like nothing see-through to what I originally had there. But I think I'm actually quite proud of like his sort of nose-eye area of his face, I think, because I have been doing a lot of studies of faces in profiles, because I realised that when I drew profiles, I drew the eye as if it was a forward-facing eye more often than not. It was pointed out to me in a critique, and I just figured like, alright, just do studies, and the consequence of that was now I'm just like super mega conscious. Also, an interesting thing that I learned in this study is the eyebrow when it's in profile mode, because most eyebrows are alright, there's hundreds of different kinds of eyebrows, but typically an eyebrow when you're facing forward is pretty straight, maybe with an arch, but when it's in profile view, it like curves around sort of the ridge of the brow. So yeah, that was an interesting thing that I learned, that did so much to like kind of boost up, I think, the look of my faces in profile. And here I am finally starting to make Rowan be affected by the lighting. Originally, I'd intended to sort of paint that in manually with the chalk brush, kind of like blend in pinks and reds to give it a painterly aesthetic. But then by the time I got to this stage, I figured like any sort of manual painting that I do to affect the lighting would corrupt it, it would ruin it. It would just like give too much of a painterly look, because there's already enough painterly like strokes and stuff seen within the bottom layers. I might as well just do like a soft brush with the lighting, and then this is essentially most of the things kind of finished. I'm just trying to like blur some things, highlight some things, kind of add a bit more smoke, fog type thing. They have fog machines at clubs, so yeah, that's my excuse for that. But just trying to make it blend, and then a gradient to try to darken the edge and up the contrast, do all that sort of thing. A little sparkle brush. I got so obsessed with this sparkle brush when I first got it, but I think I kind of calmed down with it, and so I just used it like in two little spots here to try to make it look nice. And yeah, just a couple photo effects, the Photoshop equivalent of Instagram filters, messing with the curves a little bit. I usually never mess with the curves, actually. I'm more of a levels person, but yeah, I decided to try curves here. And then the next morning, after I did all that, I realised, oh, I forgot a very integral part of Rowan's costume. Oh no! So I went into Photoshop with the file that was like a PNG. It wasn't the original Photoshop file. And then I just started adding his mesh shirt on top. And then, yeah, just trying to figure out the level of transparency to the level of darkness to make it seem like it's part of the scene without like kind of being too dark or too light, kind of. And yeah, not kind of obscuring more things than it ought to. And I had a bit of trouble there in the elbow trying to have the little mesh lines kind of follow the form, but I think it looks alright, especially when it's zoomed out. Like, obviously I'm a lot more self-critical of this painting than anyone else is going to be, because I was looking at it so closely. and yeah, kind of adding a little bit of the lighting effects on top of that as well, and yeah, adding a couple more strands of hair because I can never have too many strands of hair. Personally, right, I'll sandwich in something that shows how many strands of hair I can get, because like, I'm kind of crazy with the hair things. I think I've calmed down quite a lot. And yeah, I ended up deciding to do a little bit more overpainting on the eye, because after all the filter effects that I added, I lost some of the details. It looked like he was wearing like way too much eyeliner. Like, I wouldn't put it past Rowan to wear some eyeliner, but I don't think he'd wear that much eyeliner. And yeah, just trying to add a bit more three-dimensionality to everything. And I think this is about it. So, oh no, wait, one more, kind of make the lighting reflect off the mesh thing some more, because you can never have too many details. I had a lot of fun with this, actually, and I'm really happy with how it came out. Like, I really did have, it was like pretty different to what I normally do. It like stands out from the rest of like my gallery kind of thing. It's a lot darker than most of the painterly things that I've done. So yeah, I might not have a video up next week. I might have a video next week, but like, subscribe, and I'll see you sometime.